Welcome to Dungeon Academics. My name is Thomas and I will be your instructor. This is video number 3 that I'm recording today. These have all been inspired by Mike Merle's tweets on class actions and why bonus actions are terrible. And I'd like to talk today about the fighter. The fighter is absolutely the core class of Dungeons and Dragons, along with wizards. And I think they are an often overlooked class. They are perhaps regarded as simple or beginner friendly. Certainly by higher levels, they are outclassed by all the full casters. And a lot of people look down on the fighter as something that you take a small dip in just to get action surge and maybe a fighting style. But I think fighters could be so much more. The way I want fighters to be seen is that when it's time for the fighter's turn, all the other players stop and go, okay, what craziness is going to happen now? Because this is going to be epic. I think the fighter really should shine in combat. And this should come down to what the fighter's class action is. To give a very brief recap, I think every class should have a class action. And this is something unique to that class. And because it's an action, it means you can only do one class action per turn. So there's a reduction in multi-classing shenanigans. Now, what is the defining ability for fighters? I think it's action surge. And I think action surge should be something that fighters can do every single turn. I also think it should be something that starts off weaker and gets more powerful as you level up in fighter. So taking a small dip in fighter just to get action surge isn't necessarily that useful, because if you want to do an action surge, it won't give you that much bonus unless you have a lot of levels in fighter. And it will also mean you can't do your main class's class action. So what would action surge do? Action surge is very, very simple. You get to make one attack. No quick attacks, I'll talk about that in a second. One attack, and then you get to make the attack action. You can move as normal. So let's say you're a starting fighter, you've got 2 attacks, and you're using the 2-weapon fighting style. So you've got a weapon in each hand. You've picked your fighting styles, you've picked your equipment. I'll also make a note that I think 2-weapon fighting should let you make a quick attack with your offhand weapon. And I'm going to define what quick attack is. A quick attack is exactly like a normal attack, but you don't add your ability score modifier to your damage unless it's negative. There you go. So it's much like the bonus action attack that you get now for 2-weapon fighting, except we're not calling it a bonus action attack. It's a quick attack, and it's made as part of your action because we want to get rid of bonus actions completely. Okay, so you're a fighter. You say, I'm going to use my class action surge. So I get to make 1 attack, and then I get to make my normal attack, which would be 2 attacks plus a quick attack. So 4 attacks. That's great. As you level up as a fighter, not only do you get more attacks as part of your action and access to more weapon masteries, but your action surge levels up. So now, as you level up, eventually your action surge will allow you to make quick attacks if you're entitled to do them. You might get to make 2 attacks and any quick attacks as part of your action surge. You might get additional movement as part of your action surge. You might get second wind a certain number of times as part of your action surge. Using your action surge unlocks all your great fighter abilities. It gets more powerful as you level up, and it encourages you to stay with fighter, because eventually your action surge is going to be effectively an entire second action of fighting. And as the fighter, you're going to get a lot of attacks. The other great thing about action surge is because it counts as a separate action, you can use it to fill up your combo meter. Now, I talked about combos in my previous video, which I think was labeled number 2. The idea that as you use different weapon mastery abilities in your action, you fill up your little tracker, and when it gets to a certain level, you go, great, all my subsequent attacks get bonus damage. Because your action surge counts as a separate action, and this combo is tracked per action, it means that you could potentially fill it up once with your action surge, and then fill it up again with your action, doubling the rate at which you gain bonus damage. Now, given that I want to have fighters to have lots of attacks, previously I thought just giving them extra attack more and more. Cancel that. These extra attacks are now also rolled into action surge. So everyone gets 2 attacks as base. Fighter gets an additional attack at level 5, at level 12, and level 17. Great. That's 5 attacks per turn. And eventually they'll be able to do 5 attacks as well as part of that action surge. Maybe not 5, maybe 3, maybe 4. I don't know. This takes play testing. And then any quick attacks they get to make as part of their action and action surge, it's going to be quite easy for them to fill up their combo tracker and get that damage combo twice every turn in combat. So after 3 or 4 turns in combat, their melee attacks are absolutely on fire. They are phenomenal. And wizards dropping meteor storms are going to be like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to stand back and watch because this is epic. That's what I want the fighter to be. So, how could we build this? Well, one thing I want to concentrate on as well is the different fighting stereotypes. I want to say martial archetypes, but that's the name of subclass for fighters. There are 3 melee fighting stereotypes, archetypes, styles. They all get, all those words are so loaded. You have the great weapon fighter with a big sword, axe, mace, whatever. You have the sword and board with a one-handed weapon and a shield. And then you have your weapon in each hand fighter. Those are your 3 classic archetypes. I want to make sure that for each one, for being a fighter, you can point and say, this is the one that I pick, and this is why I think it's awesome. So for a great weapon fighter, I think the answer has to be just raw damage output. If you're giving up a shield for protection and the additional attacks for having 2 weapons, I think just the raw damage output for your great weapon fighter has to be the highest. How could we do that? Well, my idea would be matching the combo damage dice to the dice your weapon is doing. So while everyone is getting extra d6s of damage for their combos, if your dice is bigger than that, maybe you're getting a d8, or even at higher levels, you're getting a d10 or even a d12. Imagine a 20th level fighter with a greatsword, and they're going, great, I get 4 extra damage dice for my combos, but forget those d6s, those are useless to me. I'm taking d12s. Your damage output is going to be absolutely insane, and people are going to be breathtaken by how much damage you can do. And that's what makes great weapon fighters the best. Alternatively, the 2 weapon fighters are going to go, that's fantastic, but no one gets more attacks than the 2 weapon fighters. And that means that no one gets to use more weapon mastery abilities than 2 weapon fighters. I've got all these additional attacks. I've got 2 different weapons, so I've got access to 2 different sets of weapon mastery features. No one can fill up their combo tracker faster than I can, and no one gets to use more weapon mastery abilities than I can. So I am putting more targets on the ground, I'm pushing more targets around, I'm slowing and vexing more targets, and I'm filling up my combo tracker faster. Sure, you're doing more damage, but I'm doing more stuff. And that is why 2 weapon fighters are the best fighters. And suddenly we've got a situation now where you're not comparing apples to apples. Before, comparing 2 weapon fighting to great weapon fighting, it was just a numbers game. Which one does the most damage? That doesn't apply now, because you're comparing, this does more damage, but this does more abilities. I like that. That's a choice. That's a meaningful choice. What about sword and board? Sword and board is going, okay, yeah, great weapon does more damage, and 2 weapon fighting does more abilities, but I've got a shield, so I've got a higher armor class, and I want shields to be good. I want shields to be really good. I want there to be an ability or a higher level feat where a fighter or any character with a shield, but especially the fighter, can add that bonus to all their saving throws. So it's not just +2 armor class, it's +2 to saves, perhaps more if it's a magical shield. And at that point, that +2 armor class, that's great. +2 to all your saves as well. That's a point where you go, oh, that extra damage, that's nice. Those extra abilities for 2-weapon fighting, that's nice. But +2 on all my saves? Now we've got a real difficult choice to make, because each one is very, very good, but in radically different ways. And that's how I want Dungeons & Dragons to work. I want players to agonize about the choices, because they can't just run numbers on a spreadsheet and say this one is best. Now, believe me, I love running numbers on a spreadsheet and saying which one is best. If you look at the Great Weapon Mystery, that's all about me running numbers on a spreadsheet and being happy doing it. But making a choice that can't be broken down into numbers like that, that's the essence of good game design. It has to be balanced, and that's the job of a game designer, to make sure that one option isn't clearly better than the others. But the fact that they're all so different and still good choices, that's what makes the game interesting. So, what do you think about my ideas for fighter? Is that the kind of fighter that you'd like to play? Please let me know, and enjoy your next game, whatever it may be.